Howdy ho ho, my good humans. How the hell are you doing? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I'm Brandon Sylvia, and it is time. It's time to get into the grand finale, the final, the final ranking of the year. We went over. We've done the 2023 hidden gems. We've talked about the backlog game of the year. I went and did my tier ranking for that. We have done the game awards, the 2023 unnecessary game awards, most played game. We've done a lot of year-end content, but this is the grand finale. I will be ranking every single game that I have played in 2023 here today in this video. And yeah, I'm really damn excited to jump into this. I want to go ahead and warn everybody, strap in. This is probably going to be a long ride. I'm going to try my best to edit this up, to chop it up, I want to really strive for an hour and 30 minutes or less for this video, but you know, we'll see how it all happens. And yeah, man, without further ado, let's jump into the ranking. So as with all rankings, obviously we have to pop it off on the tier maker list thing here, website tiermaker.com. I have all the games, as you see, laid out, every game that I played in 2023. And I removed some games from this list that I dabbled with, but didn't play enough of to really like chew on it and give I couldn't really rank it because I only played a couple hours. Those type of games I removed from the list. So I think it's like 10 per row, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, a little over 60 games that we have to rank here today. And how about we go ahead and crack this bad boy off with Hi-Fi Rush. And for Hi-Fi Rush, I would have to go A tier for sure. Just such a pleasant surprise. And I've talked about pretty much all of these games extensively. And like I said, we got 60 plus games to go through. So I'm not going to ramble on too much about each one. You can find a review. I'm for sure. I know I talked about Hi-Fi Rush, I think twice on the channel this year, because I played it the first time when it shadow dropped in January, which was such a pleasant surprise. And then I couldn't really get into it when I played it the first time. I got into it and was able to appreciate it, but I suck at rhythm games. And then when I went back to it like 6 months down the road, I just really was hooked into it immediately. And it's one of those games that's so pick up and play friendly. And just jumping back into it, it was such like a welcome treat. You know what I mean? From the 3D platforming to the incredible cartoonish visual presentation, and then for Tango to be the team to pull it off, it was just such a damn shocker. Chai as a character is great. His surrounding characters, you know, the companions are great. The light character action combat, like there's really just it was pleasant across the board. Other than, you know, I do struggle with some of the rhythm sections. I slowly started to understand that combat system a bit more. But, you know, grinding on the rails and the little 2D sections, there's just the music, some of the boss fights, how that corresponds with the music. There's some great shit in Hi-Fi Rush. So A tier for sure. Scars Above, I C or B? I'll go B for now. Like I said, we'll change this around as we go. Scars Above is a fun Returnal kind of, I shouldn't say Returnal inspired, because I mean it came out 2 years after Returnal, so I don't know how inspired they were by Housemarque, but it feels Returnal inspired. And it just kind of feels like a traditional third person shooter in a lot of ways, with some cool environmental kills going on, and a decent enough story with a surprisingly emotional payoff. And yeah, I Scars Above was pretty solid. One of the more slept on games of 2023, I would say. I don't hear many people talking about it at all. Wanted Dead. This is a difficult one because Wanted Dead is a bad game. Like, it's objectively bad from all metrics. but somehow it was one of the more engaging experiences I had in 2023. It was one that like I legitimately could not put down. And from it's so odd. It's just so odd from having Tom Cruise and The Rock as like two main bosses that you go up against, and obviously it's not, it's not Tom Cruise. They're just using his likeness in some weird way, and same with The Rock, and then having karaoke mini games and ramen eating challenges and different arcade, like the Claw arcade game, a fully explorable police station. It's such a weird game. The third person shooting's not great. The hack and slash combat's not great. The voice acting's horrible, but it feels like intentionally bad most of the time. Like I feel like they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's one of those. It's really, it's hard to put a finger on, because there's also at times like they'll have awful cinematics, and then it'll cut to like this badass anime, full on anime looking cutscene that is incredibly detailed and incredibly impressive. It is a weird video game. I can't give it a D just because of how weird it is and how engaged I was with this game. I'm gonna give it. I'll give it a C. Resident Evil 4, the remake. Of course, we have our first S tier game here. From the improvements across the board. With RE2 in 2019, I don't look at that as the definitive way to play Resident Evil 2. I look at that as a way to play Resident Evil 2, and then an equally justifiable way of playing Resident Evil 2 would be playing the 1998 game. I understand, for modern players, that's definitely RE2 from 2019. That is the definitive de facto Resident Evil 2 experience. But like, the thing is, RE2 from 98 and RE2 from 2019 are just so different that there's opportunity, and you can benefit from both experiences greatly. Whereas RE4 the remake and RE405 the original are, RE4 the remake is just totally modernizing everything about the 2005 game. And it almost because I went back to the original after playing the remake, and it just feels so antiquated and archaic in all of its design, from not being able to move and aim, from not having the knife parry, from not being able to swap your weapons on the fly, from how poorly designed Ashley's, all of her encounters are. It just feels so archaic. And that before playing the remake, Resident Evil 4 from 05 was one of my favorite games of all time. And now I don't think I will ever go back and play the original game. Like, RE4 the remake just feels like the definitive way to play Resident Evil 4 at this point. And from the new updates to the story, to some of the new cutscenes, to some of the backstory provided for these characters, Luis, his character alone is so much more important throughout the game. And Resident Evil 4, it's like, I don't replay games ever. And as soon as I finished RE4, the remake, I immediately booted it back up and played it again. And not for any achievement purposes, not for any trophy purposes. I just played on the same difficulty again, played on normal again, went right back through it just because I loved the gameplay experience so much. I think I've put 48 hours into Resident Evil 4, and that accounts for Separate Ways as well. But that's the thing. DLC, I usually don't play. But as soon as Separate Ways came out, I was just like, okay, another reason to jump back into RE4, play through this game essentially for the third time. There's obviously significant differences playing with Ada, and then there's different set piece moments and getting to experience the story through her eyes, and having the grapple hook and how that adds to the traversal and to the combat as well. Like, yeah, Resident Evil 4. I guess I would include Separate Ways in here. I don't think it's expansive enough to be included as its own game here, like some of the others that we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, RE4, the remake, absolutely S tier. Hogwarts Legacy. Do I go A or do I go S? Probably A. Yeah, I think I would go A. Would I put Hogwarts above Hi-Fi Rush? Hi-Fi Rush, I feel like, is a more unique experience. Hogwarts, I think, is much more ambitious. Hogwarts, the thing that really sticks out to me about Hogwarts, for one, of course, just staying with the ambition for a second, I think this is Avalanche's, it could be Avalanche's big breakout moment, that GTA 2 to GTA 3 moment. And I've talked about that, a ton on the channel, but going from Cars to Disney Infinity to fucking Hogwarts Legacy, it's like, what the hell? What a humongous pivot, a humongous positive transition. But the thing with Hi-Fi Rush that is so hard to undercut is just the fact that you don't see games like this almost ever. But at the same time, I mean, and I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but you'd never see good Harry Potter games. And I think the open world exploration, the fact that Hogwarts came out and was so goddamn polished, to be that big, to be that ambitious, to have a full character creation suite, to have Sims-like elements going on with your interior designing, with the room of requirement, I believe is the name, having the interior designing going on there, having the farming sim elements where you can go and save the wildlife and bring them back to the farm and take care of them. And it was just such a jolly, pleasant experience throughout the entire game. And some of the side questing is fantastic. The stuff with the dragon, fucking great moment there. The flying mount, the broom trials. Hogwarts Legacy just has some really, really high quality content. Along with, I think the combat is excellent. Lifting the characters up, the whatever, leviato, or whatever the hell the spell is, where you make them levitate, and then you slam them back down. You spin the big circle of fire around all the enemies. You engulf all of your enemies in that circle. Anyone that's in the proximity of the circle of flames that you're sending out. Like, there's some really cool combat abilities in Hogwarts, and yeah, I really liked almost everything about this game. So I think I will put Hogwarts above Hi-Fi Rush in the A tier. So yeah, there we go. Hogwarts, I couldn't put it in the same camp as RE4, though. RE4 is on a different level. Season, A Letter to the Future. Oh boy. So with Season, A Letter to the Future, the tough thing for me with this game is that I enjoyed it a good bit. I enjoy the idea of, going out on this biking simulator, taking your journal with you, journaling, and taking photographs to have these memories, to build up these memories, to build up these experiences. And I appreciate all that, but the game just broke on me. Like, towards the end of the game, it just quit working. And I've gone back to it multiple times to see if that was patched out, and it just hasn't been. Really weird. I mean, I looked up a guide on YouTube and I had like 10 minutes left to go in the game, and I have no idea what the hell happened, but it's beautiful. I like the message there of remembering to embrace the kind of the moments and make moments and make memories. I think those are all positive messages. I'll put it in the C tier, despite the fact that it broke on me. I still got to, play through the first, 6-7 hours, or maybe probably less than that, 4 or 5 hours. And only the last 10 minutes seemed to bug out on me. Dead Space the remake. I am going A tier for Dead Space the remake. I would go. Would I go above? No, I don't think I would go above. Damn, above Hi-Fi Rush or no? I'm gonna leave it for now. We might have to reassess that in a second. Dead Space the remake. I think this is like the clear distinction between something like this and something like RE4. And there was a lot of debate, around with Game of the Year, should RE4 be nominated? And I can hear out those arguments why remakes shouldn't be nominated, but I think a lot of the reasoning I couldn't really agree with, where people were going in and saying like there just weren't enough changes, and I heard that quite a bit, and it's like, man, you literally could not move your character while aiming your gun in the original game. You had entirely new story beats that played out in the remake. You had knife parries. You had, like, there was so many mechanics that were just brand new mechanics to RE4. And for that, I do think that a game being reworked from the ground up should qualify in most scenarios. It's tough with Dead Space because while I do understand that it was reworked from the ground up, I don't think, as a player, I don't think we necessarily could get that feeling. Like if we booted up Dead Space on the 360 from 2008 or 9, if we booted that up on one TV and then we booted up the remake on the other TV, would we really be able to like tell that it was totally reworked from the ground up? Obviously, you can see the lighting improvements are drastic. The zero gravity improvements, you can tell that was reworked from the ground up. But a lot of the essence, the DNA, and the core gameplay loop of Dead Space from 2008 is so clean, so polished, so tight that you really don't need to overhaul it quite like you do RE4. Dead Space from 08 has aged much better than RE4 from 05. But I think I am going to stick with Hi-Fi Rush in terms of the originality that is on offer with Hi-Fi Rush. I think I am going to reward that over Dead Space, specifically when you're talking about recapping 2023. I think I will. I'll keep Hi-Fi Rush over Dead Space. And now we go into Chia. And I think Chia, that's comfortably a C tier game, I would say. Chia, I think the coolest thing about it is the possession mechanic. And I think everything outside of the possession mechanic in Chia is a bit on the underwhelming-ish side, I would say. If Chia, the game, was just, okay, go possess different animals, different items, objects in this world, and complete objectives while using the different animals in this game world, and having, specific objectives tied to specific animals, encouraging more versatility, more variety in the different animals you would possess, in the different items you would possess. I think that would have been more fun to me than the actual main quest, the main narrative. I just really wasn't captivated by that at all. But no doubt the possession mechanic was cool as shit. That's one of the craziest mechanics I've seen in games ever. It's insane. WWE 2K23. I am going to drop that in the C tier as well. Oh, I gotta start organizing this C tier. I didn't even think about that. Wanted Dead, I would put that at the bottom of the C tier. I would put Chia right above Wanted Dead. I'd go 2K. Actually, I think I'd put 2K23 in the B tier. Now looking at it, I think that it's right there in that same company with Scars Above. But yeah, I'll go Season a Letter to the Future right above Chia, and then below 2K23 in the B tier. WWE 2K23, I think, has the best career mode in a wrestling game since WWE probably late PS3 games like WWE 12 and SmackDown vs. Raw 2010, 2011. Definitely, I would say the best career mode since those days. The female, because it has like a male and female career mode in 2K23, and the female career mode is rock solid, excellent. You have your aunt, who was a WWE diva, and you are kind of following in her footsteps, and she still kind of has an urge to get back in the ring. And how that all plays out, you could probably understand how that all plays out. But she was removed from action by she was injured, and she was out of action for a while. And then while watching you climb the ranks and become successful, she's getting that urge to get back involved. And I'll just say, as obvious as the plot is, the big reveal and how it happens is actually really impressive. And I'll just say, fuck it. I mean, spoilers for WWE 2K23. Skip ahead 45 seconds if you want to play that game and you haven't yet. But there's a section in the elimination chamber where the pod is totally blacked out. And whenever the like you can't see who's going to exit the pod. And then, she exits the pod, your aunt does. Once again, while the fact that it is your aunt in the pod isn't necessarily the biggest surprise in the world, how they set everything up, how they laid it all out, it felt like a cool spectacle. It felt like something you could actually see on WWE TV, and that moment was dope. And then the male career was pretty good. You start off, you're playing as a character, and they're calling him the Lock, as he's set out to be the next big superstar in the WWE, and then he ends up getting himself into a ton of shit. It's a roller coaster of ups and downs for his career, and you're trying to reclaim that status that you had while being introduced to the WWE universe. And but both modes are pretty solid. The female career mode is much better, but they're both pretty solid, and I would say across the board the best wrestling season mode, story mode, whatever you want to call it, in a game since the early 2010s. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, comfortably in the S tier. I think those two games and a couple others are going to be battling it out for Game of the Year. Jedi Survivor is just a total improvement over everything that Respawn set out to do with Fallen Order. Some of my favorite gameplay moments, and then I talked about my favorite story moment overall in the unnecessary award show, but some of my favorite gameplay moments as well come from this game, from the new grapple hook that they introduce, and how you're able to use that to traverse through these different environments, and the Metroidvania. I know that term gets thrown around all the time, but it really is applicable here with Jedi Survivor. It is so fucking fun to get these different abilities and to be able to reach new locations and explore new parts of the map and take part in different the different puzzles or the different time trials. And but in terms of combat, like grabbing an enemy and force pulling him to you, and then just sticking that damn lightsaber through the enemy's gut, through the stormtrooper's gut. Or once again, honestly, talking about Hogwarts Legacy, it's a very similar mechanic of force pushing an enemy up in the air and then force pulling him back down, just slamming that bitch back down. Force pushing the different projectile, the different missiles that are being launched at you, force pushing them back towards the enemies. And there was that one ability where you could throw your lightsaber, and then it would you could slowly direct it back to you, and wherever Cal would move, the lightsaber would follow. So you could just slowly decimate enemies in this circle and grab your lightsaber back. And after you're done, you got just enemies sprawled out all over the floor that you just one by one dismembering them bitches. Such a fun combat loop. And having the different stances was such a crucial factor in making the combat so fun here for me, because I like faster, more fluid combat, less pattern recognition, less. I like to be on the offensive more than the defensive, and it's less methodical in Jedi Survivor if you pick the dual wielding stance. And obviously you have your Darth Maul stance, you have like the heavy saber stance, you have they introduce the ability, you have like I forget what they call it, a blaster. You know, you have a blaster pistol. And so they have different stances available, but for me, the dual wielding, having the two sabers and being able to play more like a character action game, very fast, very aggressive, and more about just kind of quick parrying opposed to sitting there and trying to memorize and recognize each of the boss's patterns, and just being more aggressive, more on the attack. I love that feeling with a lightsaber, and it felt like they were really able, I was able to get what I wanted out of Star Wars lightsaber combat in Jedi Survivor in a way that I really wasn't in Fallen Order. And I won't dive into the story stuff too much because, like I said, I talked about that in Best Moment in the award show. But that end reveal was insane. My favorite moment of the year in terms of storytelling in games. It was just so insane how they blended the cinematics into the gameplay, and just super high stakes. It felt like, honestly, it felt like an hour plus of just incredibly high stakes and a great cap to the end of that game. And I mean, you know, having the new cosmetics, being able to kind of go and you make Cal scruffy, you give him a beard and some different hair, different clothing options. The bounty hunter stuff was tremendous, and that felt like spontaneous, like these encounters would just occur naturally in the world. I mean, I played all of the tactic, the Holo Tactics minigame. I played through the entire thing. I did so many of the different trials. I just wanted to run. This was such a hard game for me to put down. After, you know, playing through it and finishing the main story, I just wanted to remain in this game world. Everything that I played from that point on, you know, it took me a second to really get back in the groove of playing other things, because after playing Jedi Survivor, everything else just kind of felt inferior to me. So, yeah, I mean, oh boy, that or Resident Evil 4. Man. Because it's the same thing with both games. It's like the incredible gameplay loop. Here's the thing. I don't think that I like the gameplay for one more than the other, but I love the story in Jedi Survivor. Like, yeah, I love the story in Jedi Survivor way more than Resident Evil 4. And I mean, I think I could really make the argument, arguing against myself, but I think I could make the argument against myself that this is probably my favorite Star Wars story. Well, let me say this. I'm way behind on the Star Wars TV shows. I've watched all the movies, obviously. I would say this is my favorite out of anything modern Star Wars. I think this would be my favorite story over Rogue One, over any of the, you know, the new trilogy, over Solo. Like, I think this would be my favorite Star Wars story. Jedi Survivor over Jedi Fallen Order. Like, this specific Cal story with Bode, with Seer, like that story in Jedi Survivor, it's my favorite modern Star Wars story altogether. So I'm sorry, Resident Evil 4, man. I gotta put Jedi Survivor at the top of the S tier for now. And now moving on into Atomic Heart. That's a D tier game for me. I know a lot of people love it. I think a lot of people came to it much later than I did, and I think that's the big disconnect. People playing it after it was patched up. I played it on day one through Game Pass. I loved the world building. I loved the art style. I loved the tone. Holy shit, this thing was busted. Game-breaking bug after game-breaking bug. Ability bug after ability bug. Like, it was just constantly bugging the fuck out. The open world was horribly designed, in my opinion, and the story was a bit nonsensical, but I could appreciate that. Even though it would go off the rails time and time again, I was still pretty intrigued with what was going on throughout the majority of the game. So I didn't hate the story. I definitely didn't hate the tone. I definitely didn't hate the graphics on this thing. It's up there with some of the most unique looking video games that I've seen, and obviously it takes inspiration from BioShock, but they have their own really specific slant, their specific angle that they're attempting with Atomic Heart. So I appreciate things about it, but golly, it was so fucking buggy. And I went through and finished it, and I think that just made me dislike the game even more. But yeah, D tier for Atomic Heart for me. But I've heard that it is massively cleaned up now, so maybe checking it out now you'll have different results than I did. A Space for the Unbound, I would go, yeah, B tier, definitely in the B tier. A Space for the Unbound is an old school NES style adventure game, NES inspired adventure game. And the thing with A Space for the Unbound is it's very simplistic on a mechanical front, but from a narrative standpoint, it's one of the more interesting games you'll play in 2023. And the themes that it touches on, the depression and suicide, and it goes there narratively. And when you look at this game, you really would never think that it would approach such deep, dark topics just from the way it's presented visually, but it very much does. And it's constantly surprising in how it tackles the supernatural at times. And it's just one of those games where even though you have like this small city that you're going around and exploring and interacting with the different townspeople, it just feels fresh. It constantly feels fresh because of, I don't really want to spoil it, but like I said, there are supernatural elements, and you're visiting some places outside of this city. I'll just say that. And yeah, I very much appreciate the balls that this game has in terms of its narrative. It's very ambitious from a narrative standpoint. And next up, we have Dead Island 2, and I'll go C tier for Dead Island 2. Actually, before I do that, I stay forgetting this shit. A Space for the Unbound, would I put that above 2K? Actually, you know what? I think I'd put 2K23 above Scars Above. And actually, I think I would put A Space for the Unbound above Scars Above. So, yeah, we'll sort that out on the B tier there. And C tier, Dead Island 2, I'd put Dead Island 2 at the top of the C tier. So, yeah, Dead Island 2 is not really the story of Dead Island 2 is awful, but I gotta give it love just for that gore technology that they have on offer. It's one of, if not the most gory game I've ever played in my life, and just having a full physics system surrounding the dismembering and just decapitating, destroying of these different zombies, like that is so goddamn funny for one, but it's also really fun in terms of just the moment-to-moment combat, with the different weapons, your guns, your hammers and swords and knives, and all of your different projectile attacks, and some of your environmental kills that you can pull off, blowing up gas tankers and watching zombie bodies just be flung all over the place with half their damn guts spilling out, with the legs flying off in the other direction, their top half of the body flying off in the other direction. It's crazy. It's a chaotic sandbox of total carnage. But like I said, the story is god awful, almost unbearable. And the thing that I will say this, the sunny and 75 backdrop of Los Angeles, that combined with what you're actually doing in the gameplay of just totally decimating these zombies, it's the dichotomy there is actually kind of funny. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a positive, like, vibey location, and you're just engaging in total nonstop destruction. And yeah, that is kind of funny. And there are a few segments in the story that are a bit on the humorous side, but overall, like, the story really isn't the reason you're going to stick through Dead Island 2. So, top of the seats here for you, Dead Island 2. Horizon Burning Shores. Huh. I mean, this is like, what, an 8-hour, something like that, DLC. I'll put that in the B tier. But I will put that, I'll put it above everything except for WWE 2K23 for Horizon. Forbidden West in 2022 was my game of the year, and this is just more of that, but actually an improved version of that in terms of for one, it's not being held back by the PlayStation 4. You know what I mean? This is a PS5 exclusive piece of downloadable content, and you see that in the scale that this game is offering up, with the final boss fight being just one of the most incredible things one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in a boss fight in video games. It feels like a 10x version of Shadow of the Colossus. It's fucking insane. And, you know, flying your mount through the clouds and their cloud technology, and seeing the Hollywood sign with the pools of lava, you know, running down the hills beneath it. Just, there's some really, really impressive shit in this game. And I actually think I like the story in Burning Shores more than I like the story in Forbidden West. But, you know, I can't really, it's piggybacking entirely off of Forbidden West, and I don't think it's as chunky. You know what? Here, we'll actually do this right now. Phantom Liberty, this is kind of the example of, you know, like that Blood and Wine level expansion, DLC, whatever you want to call it. Phantom Liberty, I'm going to put that in the A tier. I'll put it behind Dead Space, but that is like an A tier expansion, in my opinion. You know, with Burning Shores, it's definitely, I wanted to include it here where I didn't include Separate Ways. I just kind of look at that as more of an expansion. I look at that as more of what Resident Evil 4 already is. Phantom Liberty, I look at as its own game. Burning Shores, I look at as its own game, kind of. And out of the two, Phantom Liberty is just much more impressive as its own game. With Phantom Liberty, you're talking about, well, for one, you're talking about Idris Elba, Keanu Reeves in the same game, both having significant roles. I was surprised that Keanu Reeves returned. He reprised his role as Johnny Silverhand and was actually still a meaningful character. Meanwhile, you have Idris Elba, who is, he probably has the second most lines out of any character in the game, outside of V. In Phantom, I don't know, Songbird. Regardless, he's up there. He delivers a lot of lines, and I wasn't totally blown away by his performance, but it was still Idris fucking Elba and Keanu Reeves in this game. And, you know, I'm not trying to be the what Trent Reznor called it, star fucker. I'm not trying to be the star fucker here, but that is crazy to see that in the video game space in 2023. Just, it shows you how much more respected this medium is. And I mean, I guess I've said this so many times, but Cyberpunk, CDPR in general, they just seem cooler than most of anything else in the industry. The worlds that they build, the atmosphere, the vibes, the immersion, it's just cooler. I mean, the moment that I think of, and there's actually a couple moments. The casino moment with Reed, Idris Elba, and the brother and sister, that's one of the coolest moments I've ever seen in a game. The moment where, and this isn't on the same scale, but the moment where you're sitting at the basketball court, chopping it up with, that would have been Silverhand. You're chopping it up with Silverhand, and you're watching these two people are playing like a full-on basketball game, one-on-one. and they have their own distinct moves, and they're attacking the rack differently, and then stepping back and doing jump shots. And it's like that attention to detail. It's not even that. It's not even a money thing, a budget thing. It's just a CDPR thing. You know what I mean? Like, they seem to be the team that would look at something like that and go, okay, yeah, that's cool as shit. We gotta include that in our game. That's worth including in our game. And they just do specific things that feel so different than other teams that are minute, but when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a CDPR little intricate detail that I'm noticing here. The scene where you're drinking the beer with the president and having that conversation. And yeah, I mean, Phantom Liberty, the fact that the Manus Blades, that was some of the most addicting combat, some of the most addictive combat that I have played in a game in forever. I'm essentially getting to play a first person Wolverine game with the new updates to Phantom Liberty, with being able to jump to the second story and do instant rage kills, instant special moves, and then taking the motorcycle and then, standing up on the seat of the motorcycle and then leaping off onto an enemy with my Manus Blades. And there's so many. I think one is like a cloaking ability in the new skill tree that they offered up. There's just so much sick ass shit in Phantom Liberty that it really feels like its own game. Plus, I mean, what is this? I put probably 16 hours into Phantom Liberty, and there's probably at least another 15, 16 in there. So I mean, it's a 30-hour DLC if you want to clean the entire map up. Fucking nuts. Dogtown, the new kind of Gotham City district that's on offer here. The grimy, criminally ran underbelly of Dogtown. The moment where you're watching the president get taken out at the beginning of the game, watching it's the helicopter, right? The helicopter is it a plane or helicopter that gets shot down, and you're watching that take place. You're seeing carnage ensue in the streets. Fuck, man, dude, I'm sorry. Phantom Liberty I'm putting above. It is what it is, man. Phantom Liberty I'm putting above Dead Space, and I'm putting it above Hi-Fi Rush 2. I know that might not seem fair for a DLC. That the fact that I can just sit here and think about all these different moments, and like I said, you guys obviously probably know by now with my stuttering and umming and pausing through this that nothing that I make here is scripted. But this is kind of one of the reasons why. You know what I mean? Like, this would be a moment where I would put Dead Space and Hi-Fi Rush above Phantom Liberty if I just listen to kind of my the way that my brain would lean in a more list centric manner. But when I actually sit here and think about all the different moments in Phantom Liberty, that's up there with anything else that I played in 2023. I will say, my one critique here is that Phantom Liberty, it was a little bit, had some bugs on it. It had some bugs on it. There were some missions that I just could not complete. And not only like could not complete, there were missions that I could not begin. So yeah, it had some bugs. It had some bugs on it. Nothing that prevented me from, finishing the game, but yeah, gotta acknowledge the issues that the game had. But man, some of those fucking moments. And yeah, I could keep going. I want to talk more about that casino scene, but play this game. It's like the most epic James Bond level, and that's the whole game is a spy espionage thriller. So sick. So fucking sick. The Big Con. This was a Game Pass title. I think it actually released before 20. I'll put it in the C tier. It released before 2023, and I just played it for the first time in 2023. I think it actually released for the console the first time. It was released for the first time in 2023 for the console. It came to Game Pass. I played it. Your mom is in debt to these loan sharks, and you go across the world or across town trying to rob people. You're jumping on buses. You're conning people. You're robbing people. You're pickpocketing people, trying to bring back enough money to keep your mom's business afloat to pay off the loan sharks. Cool enough concept. execution was just a little bit. The gameplay just felt a little bit repetitive, in my opinion. Yeah, I'd put it at the bottom of the C tier. I think that's fine. I wouldn't put it at the D tier. There's nothing like broken or wrong with the game whatsoever. Dredge, A tier, definitively A tier, above Dead Space, above Hi-Fi Rush. Ooh, Phantom Liberty or Dredge. I have no fucking clue. I think I'd go Dredge above Phantom Liberty. I think I would go Dredge above Phantom Liberty, specifically for the fact that I was constantly in awe of Dredge. You know, it's a game that when if you heard someone describe it to you, you wouldn't really be able to understand why it works as well as it does. You know, a fishing game meets a horror game, but whenever you actually see it in action, you're like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of course this is kind of terrifying. Being isolated alone at sea and then having these HP Lovecraftian inspired monsters beneath you at all times and having to upgrade your boat to be able to tackle the waters and to maneuver around these monsters. And then, you know, the item management that comes, the item management that just comes naturally with survival horror games, and the loop there that's so rewarding in Dredge, where you're going off and you're catching your different fish, and then you're taking it back to the fish merchant. And then I've talked about this so much on the channel, so I apologize for the repetition, but you know, lining all of that stuff up in your menu, that way that you can, when you take it back to the fish merchant, you can get maximize value, or maximize money for what you have in your cargo. And how that is immediately tied to the upgrade system with your boat, where, you know, that becomes such an addictive part of the game as well, where I just want to maximize my engine. I want to maximize my hull. I want to get the best lighting. I want to go out into this world and feel fucking invincible, have the fastest boat on the block. And then the supernatural ties to the game, where you get some, I'll just say, you get some abilities down the line, and actually kind of early on, that let you know, oh, okay, so some weird shit is brewing on this coast here. And yeah, the different townspeople that you meet, all creepy, mysterious, and interesting stories, better than it has any right to be. And yeah, Dredge, very, very pleasant surprise for 2023, and just absolutely fucking loved it. Tears of the Kingdom, I'll go B tier for Tears of the Kingdom. I'll put that at the top of the B tier for sure. It's the best game that I just could not finish that I played in 2023, and no fault at all. The game is not at fault. The Switch is at fault. And it's not even the Switch that's at fault, to be fair. It's just my anti-Switch bias. I hate playing games on that console. And I realized after playing Tears of the Kingdom, I realized that I just gotta sell the Switch. So I ended up selling it after playing Tears of the Kingdom, and that would make you think, oh, well, you hated the game. You hated the game so much that you sold the system that it was attached to. And that's not the case at all. It was just, if I can end up not wanting to play a game that's this good all because of the hardware, then I need to get rid of the hardware. If Tears of the Kingdom came out for the PS5 or the Series X, it would probably be my game of the year, or close to it, this year. It's such a magical experience, man. If it wasn't for all the fucking wonky controls and just the wonky shit that comes with the Switch, once again, and it's not even as much the Switch as it is just me disliking everything about playing on the Switch, docking it, setting it up, playing it handheld. I really hope Nintendo can put out a handheld device and a damn, console device for their next generation. I know they'll just end up doing a Switch too, which I get from a financial standpoint. But Tears of the Kingdom is, I mean, the Ultra Hand ability, the Ascend ability, two abilities that, for one, I'll say this: the puzzle solving in Tears of the Kingdom, like, it made me look at puzzle solving in other games and immediately made them feel archaic when compared to what Tears of the Kingdom does. Where you don't, the answer is, there's never a no. You know what I mean? It's just figuring out how you want to solve the puzzle best. There's hundreds of solutions to each puzzle, seemingly. And it's just you figuring it out. You figure out what you want to do. You come up with the solution. And that's just a really rewarding and like engaging way to tackle puzzle solving in a video game. And I think that we'll see the ripple effects. We'll see the influence of that system, of that approach to puzzle solving in games for years, for decades after Tears of the Kingdom. Like my favorite moments of that game were just figuring out my solutions to solving the puzzles. I don't think the combat is great. Although I will say, like, I saw people playing the game and deep into the game and rewinding combat and sending, missiles back at enemies. Just all sorts of crazy shit that I never got to do. So I don't know, maybe the combat gets incredible, but this story was incredibly lackluster from what I played. I played like 20 hours of it. And the story was incredibly lackluster, but I know that's not really Nintendo's MO. They don't make really story narrative focused games. But yeah, I mean, listen, that puzzle solving is next level. That Ascend ability is next level. Just that idea of we were using this a lot in development to be able to jump through these hard to reach areas or areas of the game that we were getting annoyed with. We were using Ascend, and now we're just throwing it into your game. Have fun. Once again, it just feels like all of the DNA of this game, all of the ideology that this game subscribes to is let the player have fun, figure it out on their own, have a good time. And yeah, I appreciate the shit out of that design philosophy. Bramble the Mountain King. I'll go B tier on this one, no doubt. I'll go above Scars Above, and I will also go above Space for the Unbound, I think. Bramble the Mountain King is one of the most deceptively dark games I've ever played in my life, and like dark to a wild degree. It's very much one where you need your trigger warnings or whatever the hell. You definitely go into that prepared. It's dark, and it's it's a Little Nightmares inspired title, very Little Nightmares inspired, but it's ambitious as shit. For being a really small developmental team to having boss fights in this game. The scale of the monsters, the enemies in this game is terrifying, especially in contrast with how small you are as a character. You're so damn tiny in comparison to the enemies that you're going up against, the monsters that you're going up against. And that juxtaposition is always frightening and always impressive just on a technical front. Like I said, the boss fights, some of them are really, really engaging. Some of them are really, really fun in this game. It's nothing incredibly complex, but just they give you a decent amount of variety with the gameplay experience. It's not just, platforming, puzzle solving. There's a good bit of that in there as well, but they just do a great job of mixing it up and giving you different things to do, unique things to do and see throughout the entire experience. They play with light really well, and then kind of hanging in the shadows, and then things popping up out of nowhere, and then light jump scares, but also having you as the player and it really engage with your fears of the dark and having you traverse through locations that are totally pitch black and just sort of predicting and guessing where the right place is to jump. And you might get a slight glimpse of the platform that you're supposed to reach in this pitch black area, and you gotta trust yourself. And obviously there's checkpoints and shit like that, so you bounce right back, and there's no real risk, but it does play with your fear, because everybody has some fear of the dark. Literally, if you can't see and you're having to make a huge leap to jump to the next platform to get away from some enemies, like, of course that's naturally scary. And that was just a really interesting way to play with that idea that I haven't seen done much at all in games like this. So yeah, shout out to Bramble the Mountain King. Wildly dark. Heads up times 10. Wildly dark. Redfall, D tier. I guess I'd go below Atomic Heart. I at least finished Atomic Heart. There was enough there to chew on that I wanted to see through. Redfall I played for maybe 5 hours or so, and just, yeah, I've heard that it's been cleaned up, polished up a lot, but I don't know if that's something you can really polish up. It seemed rotten from the core. It seemed like a service game that they turned into an actual game, and there's not enough actual game in there. The roots, the soulless service is still attached to the final product that we got from Redfall. It feels like a service game with no live service. No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. I don't even think this came out this year, so I apologize for that. I'll put it in the C tier. I'll go above the Big Con, because I did finish No One Lives Under the Lighthouse, although it's only like an hour or two long. It's just a first-person adventure game, narrative-driven, kind of. The narrative is all. It's very, very subtle, but it's really creepy. It's a, like I said, first-person horror game, and you are operating this lighthouse, and there's just so many weird occurrences taking place around this lighthouse, and it feels like you're hallucinating half the time. You don't really know what is real, what is not real. And throughout the experience, it gets to a point of like sheer high level insanity. And it's actually a pretty cool game. Once again, very, very minimalistic, very, very short, but it's worth looking into. If I'll throw a trailer in here, and you can kind of see what the game looks like, and see if it'd be something that might be up your alley. But it's worth looking into if you're into like a good kind of light walking sim, first person horror style title. Really, once again, really, really short, but yeah. Killer Frequency. I will go, yeah, absolutely. It's A tier for sure. Killer Frequency I would put in the A tier. I'll go above Dead Space Remake for Killer Frequency. I think I would put Hi-Fi Rush. I'd put Hi-Fi Rush above Killer Frequency. That's actually really close. I've talked about Killer Frequency so much on the channel, so I apologize once again for the repetition, but you're playing as a DJ in a small town, and you are solving murders as the 911 hotlines, the 911 phone has been rerouted to your radio station, so you can keep the townsfolk up to speed with where the murderer is at, and the different people who are running away from this serial killer are calling you, and you're trying to help them out. You're trying to solve puzzles to get them to safety. It's one of the most immersive, atmospheric games of the year for sure. Just it totally nails the idea of playing as a disc jockey in the 80s, and I guess not even disc jockey, record jockey. I don't even know what the terminology would be, but you're spinning these records, and you are, which I guess records are, regardless, you're playing these records, old classic 80s records. They're not real, but you're playing these 80s tracks, and you're just vibing. You got your co-host in the other booth, your producer, whatever, in the other booth. You're chopping it up with her. You're taking the different calls. You're trying to solve the murder. The only thing I would say that with Killer Frequency that I wish would have been included was just some cutscenes to see what was going on with the people who were being hunted down, the people who were being killed. And like after you solve the puzzle correctly or incorrectly, getting to see them get to safety or get killed, I think that would have added a lot of spice to the game overall. But outside of that, really no complaints. Just one of the vibiest games of 2023 for sure. Game Deck Definitive Edition. I will go. I'll go B tier for this actually. I think I'll go above Scars Above, and I would go. Yeah, I think I'd go under A Space for the Unbound. I believe really close though. Actually, those are really close. Game Deck Definitive Edition is a Disco Elysium, styled CRPG, I guess you could call it. It is very much the cool thing about Game Deck Definitive Edition is that it's all VR. Like the majority of the game takes place in VR. You are a detective in a VR world, and VR has become like such an addictive part of reality that people are locking themselves into VR worlds and not coming out. So a big part of your job is trying to help people come out of these VR worlds, but you actually, once again, people are so immersed into these VR worlds that they think of that as reality. So you're having to go in and look at these different people's lives in VR as if it was reality, and you have to help them slowly disconnect from these VR worlds to bring them back to reality. And you actually can like end up dying in VR and die in real life, or like the first mission of the game is trying to get this dude's son, this businessman, his son has been locked into VR for days and days. And like that dopamine rush that you get from VR, if you would disconnect from the device immediately, if you just pulled the cord, the kid would die immediately, because that dopamine release would be too severe. Like he would need some of that. He would need to kind of wean himself off slowly, essentially. And that might be a horrible description of how the game actually works. But the cool thing about VR being like the main focus for the setting is that they can go anywhere. You know what I mean? There's really no restrictions in terms of where you can go, what you can see. You have fantasy worlds, you have sci-fi worlds, you have, Gotham City-esque worlds, you have kind of, Western worlds. Like you have so much shit taking place, and it's all because there's no restrictions, because you don't have to have a cohesive through line with the narrative. You can go wherever the hell you want. The world is yours, in these different VR worlds. Anything you can think up, you can go there. So the settings are just kind of limitless, and you see so much different shit. You're swapping between so many different locations throughout the game. And it's not as in depth or as detailed as Disco Elysium with like the decision making and stuff, but still, I mean, it was a really, really damn enjoyable experience. I played through the whole thing. It's decently long. I'd say maybe 20 hours long or so, and yeah, I enjoyed the shit out of the entire game. Planet of Lana. I'll put this in the B tier as well. This is just a visual treat, man. It's so fucking beautiful from a visual standpoint, and it ends up going some places that really, really surprised me. It's a 2D side-scrolling, inside Limbo inspired puzzle solving game, platformer, but it's just the art style that's really the thing that, to me, it just screams out at you immediately upon playing this thing, upon putting it into your system. And the puzzle solving is never too complex, too difficult. So it's just a game that you can kind of like marvel at the beauty of the world and solve some pretty simple puzzles. You have a cute cat companion, and there's really just wholesome sections of the game where you're traveling, you're trying to get across this river, and you have to go and grab a damn log and bring the log back to the cat, and the cat hops on the log, and you got to kind of pull the cat along. It's so sweet. And it's a very wholesome game across the board. And it's got a kind of slightly darker slant to it. There's some alien robot robotic technology that's trying to imprison people and shit. And yeah, so it's got an okay story. It's got like some Star Wars-esque elements that take place towards the back half of the game. And yeah, it was really cool. Where would I put it though? I think I'd put it. I think I'll leave it at the bottom of the B tier. I believe that might be incorrect, but I don't know. For now, I'm gonna leave it at the bottom of the B tier. All right, and now we have Final Fantasy 16. This is a big one. This is a juggernaut. You know what? I'm gonna take a drink of water before we dive into this one. So Final Fantasy 16 is. I love the combat, the hack and slash character action style combat. Absolutely adored it. The icon boss battles are cool as fucking shit. You know what I mean? And it's constantly cool. There's never a moment. When I first started playing the icon boss battles, the one where you're like flying around on the dragon and then shooting the fireballs and then avoiding oncoming damage, and I thought, okay, is this what we're getting here? Because if so, that might get old quick. It's not. The fact that they're constantly introducing new mechanics and new styles of icon boss fights throughout this game, along with your traditional, third person hack and slash boss fights when you're playing with, as Clive. The fact that those icon boss fights are at the scale that they are, I don't know how those fights were less than $100 million alone. Those icon boss fights. That is some of the craziest, most just expensive looking moments I've ever seen in a AAA video game. And the fact that they keep it fresh and they keep it fun and they keep it the variety intact throughout those different icon boss fights. And the fact that I was always looking forward to them. And they also don't overdo it. And I think that could have been a very safe, reliable thing to fall back on, just to keep on continuing to dive back into these icon boss fights because they are just so fucking cool. But the fact that they space them out every time that you see a new one, it feels so important. And I think that is a crucial component to always feeling like the scale is at 11. Because if you constantly see something that is scaled at 11, it inherently brings the scale down to like 7 because you just get used to it. And keeping it fresh was such a great it was just a really great design choice, and not over relying on it, because I could imagine that would be really easy to over rely on, especially with just how cool it is. But the one thing I'll say negatively about Final Fantasy 16, and I have a few complaints. I don't mind that it's simple. It's a very, 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 very easy game. And then I don't mind that. I don't mind that. And, the fact that you really can't increase the difficulty to make it any more challenging, I do understand why people would get bummed out by that. Once again, I don't really care. My big complaint with Final Fantasy 16 is the fact that the side quests are so bad. They're so bad. And I heard people, wait till the later game, they get good 57 hours. Fuck that, man. Absolutely no. I'm not going to just go and do different side quests in order to hopefully find the ones that are cool if 80% of them suck. Hell no. Absolutely, positively not. And I can usually feel like, okay, side quests aren't fun. I don't really care. I'm a main narrative guy. And when they're guiding you down the main narrative, it is so good. It's so strong for like 90% of it. Then you get to a couple points in the game where they do that side questy, fetch questy bullshit, but they force it upon you in the main narrative. It's like, no. I'm not going to that damn library and fucking looking around and searching for books. No, hell no. Do not make me do this boring shit. And they make you do that boring shit. And it's a bummer, but that's maybe 5 hours out of the 40 hours that I put into the game, which is, a significant chunk of the game. I would say it was meaningless. 5 hours. But okay, if 35 of those hours are great, then it's like, can I really bitch that much? This was an excellent video game. The story, the active Time Lord, being able to refresh yourself on what's taking place narratively, and just the story in general, the mature tone, the obviously the M rating helped that a ton. The Game of Thrones inspiration that's on offer, that's so obvious. These characters are incredibly intriguing. Clive had one of the, or Ben Starr as Clive had one of the best performances of the year. The family dynamic there was so goddamn interesting with his brother, with his mother. Incredibly intriguing family drama throughout the course of the game, and it resolved in a incredible manner. The ending was fantastic. It was, from a narrative standpoint, so consistently strong. And yeah, I think the good just so strongly outweighs the bad with Final Fantasy 16 that I have to put it. I got to put it in the A tier. Now its placement, for sure above Dead Space, for sure above Killer Frequency, above Hi-Fi. I wouldn't put it above Phantom Liberty. I think that's right where I would place Final Fantasy 16. Below Phantom Liberty, above Hi-Fi Rush. All right, and now we move on into AEW Fight Forever. That is for sure D tier. I'd put Redfall above it. This has one of the worst. It probably has the worst. I don't know about the worst. One of the worst story modes in a wrestling game ever. Just god awful. Immortals of Avium. I would go, absolutely B tier for Immortals of Avium. I would put Immortals of Avium above A Space for the Unbound, right below Bramble the Mountain King. This game's cool as shit. It's just like a really simple, like if you love the old school first person shooter campaigns that you could finish in 15 hours or less, Immortals of Avium is perfect for you. It's a magic based first person shooter that feels very traditional in terms of its first person shooting, but it's like the motion capture, the facial animations, the character modeling, like it's a really impressive triple A feeling game. The scope of this game, some of the level design is wild, man, in terms of the environments that you're seeing and exploring, and the puzzle solving can get really intricate and really cool. And listen, it's a bit on the safe side in terms of the combat. The combat's not crazy, but you do have cool ass abilities where you're ripping the ground up from up underneath you, and you're charging at these enemies. You have one where you can essentially create like a vortex and pull all the enemies into it, and they got some really cool shit. I think it's your blue ability. You can send out this direct line of incredibly powerful, consistent, just like this beam of fire, and it just does massive damage to the enemies. So listen, it's not reinventing the wheel of first person shooters, but I think a lot of what's on offer there, I think the story's pretty solid. It leans into the Marvel quippy bits a little too much for me, in my opinion, but it's not like it's not overdone to the point where it makes the story worthless. I think it is still overall a pretty decent narrative, especially accompanied by the fact that it's a beautiful game to look at. And I imagine it was really expensive to make. And I think that, unfortunately, when you're seeing a lot of the financial issues that the studio is having, I would imagine it's because the game is really damn expensive to make. So I would recommend going and checking it out if you're a fan of, old school linear first person shooters with just, there's moments that the scope is fucking incredible in Immortals of Avium. The Expanse, I'll go with C tier for The Expanse. I'd put it above everything but Dead Island 2 in the C tier. It is a game that I think gets really strong after the third episode, and then I think but there's only episode 4 and 5 after the third episode, so it's not saying a ton there. But episode 5, it just bummed me out that it felt at the end of this game, it felt like my decisions really didn't mean as much as I had hoped that they meant, and they sacrificed decision making for including more exploration and just more to do on a gameplay front. And I feel like that sacrifice for the agency and the narrative, I could see some people appreciating that. I really didn't. I like the Telltale games where I'm just constantly making decisions, and sure, there is some illusion of choice within that, but I don't know, lie to me, let me feel like I'm making cool decisions that actually matter and that they're constantly occurring. And yeah, that just didn't really feel like it was the case with The Expanse. And next up we have WrestleQuest. That's D tier as well. I'll put it above AEW Fight Forever. It just broke on me. It just totally, completely broke on me. Absurd. I talked about it before, but I actually talked about it in the last video, so I won't repeat myself. But yeah, the game just broke. I played like 5 hours of it, was having fun, and it just broke. So I'll put it above AEW Fight Forever just for the simple fact that I was at least enjoying the experience. All right, now we get to a big one. Starfield. Oh boy. Starfield is a game that is now, it's not revisionist history. That's what I was about to say. That's not correct. I think people have just had enough time to settle in and analyze their feelings and thoughts on the game, and a lot of people left the game being disappointed. Feeling like it was just slightly under-delivered. I don't feel that, but I do understand the criticism, and I want to at least acknowledge that out the gate, that the fact that you really can't explore space much at all does suck. I will give you that. I will totally fess up to that. I'll totally admit that. I don't know what I said about that in my review. I hope I at least criticized that a little bit. If I didn't, that would be a little bit embarrassing, because I know I was gushing over the game, but I do hope that I hope that I criticize that, and I hope that I criticize like the load times and shit like that, because there are justifiable critiques with this game, and a lot of people have a lot of them. The lack of city maps, the lack of town maps, all that shit. Those are worthwhile, justifiable complaints. But when talking about my personal experience with this game, it was a lot more. Okay, here's the thing. I'm much more in favor of just get me to the good stuff, main narrative, going through the main narrative, not doing much exploration on the side unless I'm really compelled to do so. Once again, I wasn't really compelled to do so, and I think that's mostly Starfield's fault. I wasn't really compelled to just wander around space because I couldn't wander around space, and I think their ambition bit them in the ass there. However, the main narrative in Starfield is fucking excellent. It is fucking incredible. The faction quests, the main like side quests of the game, those 4 quests are better than any quest in gaming this year, in my opinion, that I've played. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. Those 4 quests are so, at least 3. The Ryujin Corporation, the UC Vanguard, and the not the Freestar Collective, the Crimson Fleet. Those 3 quests are S tier quests in video games that I've ever played in my life. They're so good. And once again, I talked about all this in the review, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I will just give you guys a couple anecdotes, a couple opinions about those quests. The UC Vanguard one, I mean, having essentially a dinosaur outbreak take place, and then you getting to politic on the cure to rid the world of ever seeing these dinosaurs pop back up again, and the behind the scenes sort of reveal that takes place of who you can choose to work with to get this done. And once again, you choose how to get this done. You choose if you want to work with that person. You choose the right cure. You choose if you want to trust the science. You choose. It feels so dependent upon you. And it has a slight horror angle. It's so good. The Crimson Fleet, that section where you essentially get to decide who you end up siding with, who you end up killing, and you could end up killing people that you literally were just, buddy with, and you see the results of your action taking place. You see their names as you're gunning them down. It is incredibly incredibly tough decisions that you're making in this moment. The Ryujin Corporation, it's like 80 layers deep. You're a business. You're kind of trying to climb the business ranks. You're in the executive suite. You're trying to climb the ranks after doing some stealth infiltration operations, and you're trying to politic your way up the ranks of that corporation. And you get like first access to this mind control technology by them implanting a chip in your brain. And you're able to influence people by mind control. You're able to persuade people to do what you say by, some form of mind control. And they are essentially using this they're using you as a test subject, and they're wanting to see if they should continue manufacturing of this chip. And you get to decide if you want to continue letting this manufacturing process take place. And once again, I'm 80 layers deep in this shit. This could mean nothing. But I'm like, okay, well, I got this technology implanted in my brain. I don't want anybody else to have this shit. So I'm going to use my mind control capabilities to convince everybody to in this board meeting to be on the side of continuing the development of this technology. And then that way, nobody else in the world can ever get this technology, and I'm the only one left with it. And so I can go around manipulating environments, mind controlling people, getting what I want out of people, while nobody else ever gets access to this technology. Once again, I could be thinking way too deep into this shit. That might not be the reality of what takes place in the game at all. I will say, I never saw anybody else in the game using the mind control technology, so maybe it did work. I would be willing to bet that it wouldn't have the payoff that I hoped that it had, but it was still so goddamn immersive in that moment where I'm thinking 80 layers deep into this shit, trying to see how my character can get the most benefit, and how everybody else can be a little bit behind, that I can be a little bit ahead of all these other characters in the game world. And yeah, man, Starfield just has, even the Free Star Collective, like I shouldn't shun that quest line is great as well. High level corporate corruption, and yeah. Starfield, I loved the story of this game. Absolutely fucking loved it. I hate Bethesda games in terms of the gameplay loop. I don't really like Bethesda games in general. And I loved this one. And then maybe that's the big disconnect. People who love Bethesda games seem to not like Starfield as much. I don't like Bethesda games. I loved Starfield. The shooting, the combat in every Bethesda game I've ever played is god awful. This was great to me. And yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Starfield to me is an S tier video game. I don't want to ever be that person on the internet who just immediately agrees with popular opinion. And I understand that the popular opinion right now is that Starfield is not as good as it should have been, or that it was a little bit disappointing, or a little bit of a letdown. I don't really feel that way, so I don't want to represent the wider internet with my opinion here. I loved the game, and yeah, so it's in the S tier. The ranking of it is tough. It's tough to put it above RE4. It's tough to put it above Jedi Survivor. I they're both three of my favorite games of the generation. And moment to moment gameplay, I wouldn't put it above either. Story, story. I would, of course, I'd put it above RE4, but would I put it above Jedi Survivor? I don't think so. I don't know. That's really close. Those are probably my two, and A Plague Tale Requiem. Those are my three favorite stories of the generation so far, I would probably have to say. So, I don't know. It's really close in terms of the storytelling, but it is for sure my least favorite combat loop, probably my least favorite overall gameplay loop, and I do have annoyances there with the unnecessary, or probably necessary because of the unnecessary thousand planets and unnecessary thousand planets and unnecessary 100 plus solar systems. Just why wait I get you want to simulate space. I understand there has to be boring mundane moments that take place in space to get that true space sim feel. God damn, man, that shit was just so, in my opinion, unnecessary, when the sacrifice is, okay, we get all these load times and constant, the navigation in this game is essentially just map navigation, or menu navigation. You're just going to the menu and clicking where you want to fast travel to. That is, yeah, that is a letdown, even for someone like me who just wants to play the main narrative, and I'm okay with fast traveling to get there. It would be nice to just be able to explore a little bit more, man. And yeah, so for that, I'm gonna put it, for now, I'm gonna put it third place in the S tier. I don't think I'd put it above Jedi Survivor or Resident Evil 4, but I am very locked in my opinion that Starfield, for what I want, delivered in spades. Did it have its disappointments? Absolutely. Were there things that I thought were less than stellar? Absolutely. But for me, yeah, it's got to be S tier. It'll be third, bottom of the S tier for the time being. Assassin's Creed Mirage. C tier, I'll go above. I'll go in between Wanted Dead and Chia. For me, Mirage, I couldn't really get into it. I'm glad that people who like Assassin's Creed stealth games are probably going to get a lot more, because this thing performed really, really damn well, and I imagine it was much less expensive than something like a Valhalla or an Odyssey. My dream is just to get like a 20-hour version of Odyssey. You know what I mean? Cut out a lot of the bloat, but just give me that Odyssey feel, that Odyssey gameplay, but a 80% less game. Like, give me a Mirage scoped version of Odyssey with the decision making and all that shit. But yeah, Mirage, the movement felt great. The melee was horrible, but the stealth was it was pretty fun. Scouting out the different enemy camps and shit, like, it was fun. But in my opinion, not fun enough to finish. Like I said, I put, I don't know, 8 or so hours into it and then just bounced out. Mortal Kombat 1, definitely in the B tier. I'll go above Bramble, right below Burning Shores, I think. Mortal Kombat 1, I got really into the story for like the first, 75%, and then they just did this whole twist where like everything that happened in Mortal Kombat 11 suddenly mattered, and it wasn't as much of a reboot as I thought, and I was just like, well, damn, that kind of sucks. I just wanted to jump in from the ground floor and be able to kind of be caught up without having to go backwards. But I don't know. I might go backwards to check out the previous games to really be totally caught up. But yeah, that bummed me out. But the fighting's great, gory as ever, fun, and yeah, I like the story modes. And Mortal Kombat 1 actually kind of got me back into fighting games. No, I shouldn't even say back into fighting games. Kind of got me into fighting games, where now, and we'll go ahead and throw it on here, Street Fighter 6. I would have never played Street Fighter 6 if it wasn't for how much I enjoyed Mortal Kombat 1. Street Fighter 6 I don't enjoy on that level. I would put it Street Fighter 6, I would put it at the top of the C tier. I'd put it above. I'd put it below Dead Island 2. I at least finished Dead Island 2. Street Fighter 6, I just thought the main story, the campaign, the story campaign, I thought was ridiculously stupid. Just unbelievably dumb. But the fighting, the actual moment-to-moment fighting was tremendous in Street Fighter 6. The character customization suite, top tier. One of the best, maybe the best character creation suite I've ever seen in gaming. Unbelievable. All right. Back to another juggernaut, Spider-Man 2. I will go definitely in the A tier for Spider-Man 2. Above Dead Space, above Killer Frequency, above Hi-Fi Rush, above Final Fantasy 16. Okay. Now we get to some tougher competition. Is it above Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty? Spider-Man 2, it's hard to be as impressed as you are the first time you see that Spider-Man game from Insomniac in 2018. This is a necessary iteration in every sense of the phrase. It improves on the base format from Spider-Man 1 in 2018 in every conceivable fashion, other than the story. The story in Spider-Man, the OG or the 2018 Spider-Man, was so much stronger than Spider-Man 2, in my opinion. I really struggled to get into the narrative on quite a few occasions with Spider-Man 2. It has its moments, man. The opening moment, like I talked about in the last video, and a moment a little like 3/4 of the way through the game definitely could have been up there for best moment of the year. So it has the moments, no doubt. I mean, the new locations, having Queens and Brooklyn in the mix in Spider-Man 2, being able to, flying with your damn wingsuit between different locations. The fast travel is so seamless and impressive on a technical front. This game is impressive on a technical front across the board. I will say I did run into quite a few bugs throughout my experience. Nothing game breaking, but consistent enough to be pretty damn annoying. And so that did hurt the experience, combined with the story not being incredible, in my opinion. But there are, like I said, there are great moments. The combat is tremendous in Spider-Man 2. The new symbiote suit and the powers that are on offer there, getting to swap between Miles and Peter instantaneously, running into one another when, out trying to do some damn crime solving, you're out there on the hunt trying to rid New York of the bad guys, and you run into Miles, or you run into Peter naturally. And those moments, there's just really great moments. Some of the side quests, like the character driven side quests, are great in Spider-Man 2 as well. But yeah, I don't personally like it as much as the first game, but it is that thing where, how do you live up to that first holy shit wow factor that you have, when seeing something for the first time, when seeing what Insomniac created with that first Spider-Man game? And like I said, this is more iterative, and it's understandable. Definitely don't fix what ain't broken. You know what I mean? Like, I don't at all blame Insomniac for sticking to this format. It's a fucking great format to stick to, and I'll continue playing all these games because they are incredibly goddamn fun. But there is a wow factor that is not on offer in Spider-Man 2 quite in the same way that it is with the first game. But it's once again, how do you live up to, how does a sequel that, in my opinion, it probably is better across the board in most areas, especially mechanically, but how does the known quantity, how does the sequel to the known quantity live up to the original, when the original broke all the ground at the time? and was so impressive at the time. And you can never again have that holy shit wow moment, you know. And yeah, so regardless, Spider-Man 2, it definitely it's in the A tier. I think I will put it above Final Fantasy 16 and right below Phantom Liberty. All right, so I'm going to burn through these next few pretty quickly. We got quite a ways to go here and already running a little bit on the long side, but Atlas Fallen, I would go C tier for Atlas Fallen. It's a character action game with a huge emphasis of kind of navigation and momentum by using the sand, and it's quick moving, fast paced, got some cool platforming. I couldn't finish it because the story was just god awful. I'll go below Chia, but I'll go above Assassin's Creed Mirage. I think for me personally, it just was a little bit more interesting. Under the Waves, cool. Submarine, deep sea exploration style game with a kind of compelling narrative, but I got stuck, couldn't figure out where the hell I was going, and for these style of games that are supposed to be just like incredibly serene, I wasn't getting much serenity out of it. So C tier, I'll go. I will go above. I'll go above Atlas Fallen. I think definitely more interesting. Goodbye Volcano High. I'm sorry, definitely D tier. Just absolutely not my vibe whatsoever. The animation is incredible. Got to give them credit there. I wanted to play because it's like a choice-based narrative adventure game. I love these style of games, but did not love this one much at all. I'll put it above. I'll actually put it at the top of the D tier. It's, in my opinion, probably a better game than anything else on this D tier. Like, it's structured better than anything else on the D tier, other than Atomic Heart, but Atomic Heart was barely playable when I played it. Layers of Fear. I will go C tier for Layers of Fear. I'll go above The Expanse, below Street Fighter 6. Layers of Fear, the first half of the game is incredible. The second half was just atrocious, just god awful. So yeah, below Street Fighter 6, above The Expanse. And now we have Crime Boss Rockay City. Unfortunately, I got to go D tier for that. I'll go top of D tier on it. I just hate roguelikes so fucking much. And the main kind of hook there is that if you die with your main character, you have to restart from the beginning, but pretty much all the cool upgrades you get are for your main character, so you want to consistently, pushing forward as the main character, and when you die, you have to restart, so it makes you, it incentivizes you to not use the main character who's getting all the upgrades. It's just, yeah, I'm just not a fan of roguelikes whatsoever. The gameplay, decent enough. It reuses a ton of fucking assets, and yeah, a bit on the less than stellar side, but not horrible. RoboCop Rogue City, absolutely shit. I mean, no. I was thinking maybe A tier, but let me cool my jets a little bit. It was quite buggy when I played it. Still so fucking fun. It did not take away at all from the fun that I had with the game. The story was such a surprise. The fact that it's a RoboCop RPG where you get to make decisions is insane. The limb dismemberment, the gore, the destructible playground that you're getting to walk around inside of, and just tearing through walls and tearing through these different environments. And yeah, it's such a fun first-person shooter action game with a surprisingly great narrative. And I'm not even a RoboCop fan. It was just an objectively really good story. I would definitely, it's the top of the B tier for me, though. For sure, the top of the B tier for me. RoboCop Rogue City was an absolute fucking treat. Daymare 1994. I'll go top of the C tier for Daymare 1994, I think. Once again, the story is so good in Daymare 1990, or so much better than I expected, because the story in 1998 was just not impressive at all. And then in 1994, they really upped the ante with, real solid cinematics and much better character models and a real focus on the story. And then the main hook with 1994 is that you have these super quick enemies and you have to freeze them. You have this freeze weapon that, you'll stop the enemies in their tracks and you're just blasting them bitches. And yeah, that was a really fun like main mechanic for the game. So yeah, I would go. I would go top of the C tier for Daymare 1994. Stray Gods, the role playing musical. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go B tier on this one. Kind of. I don't know. I probably should go C tier because everything else in this B tier I finished. But I think out of respect for the game, I want to give it a B tier because it's like B tier objective quality. It's really high quality. I just don't like musicals. And that's the main theme of the game. You're playing through a musical and you're making decisions. But it's so sick how they implement it, where you make decisions by choosing the next lyric in the song. And you can pretty much have entirely different songs wrote out by picking different, essentially dialogue options, but lyric options. And you can rewrite songs and have like totally different songs, and you get to choose the songs. It's a wild concept that I'm not explaining well at all right here, but it's one of the more interesting slants, one of the more interesting angles I've ever seen a choose your own adventure game take. And for that, I think I gotta reward it. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the B tier. It is really, really high quality. The story from what I played, and they do a good job of not relying solely on the musical component of the game. I feel a little bit fraudulent for not finishing it and putting it on the B tier, but I really want to acknowledge that it is like of B tier caliber, B tier quality. It's just simply the fact that I don't like musicals. But I don't know. I need to go back and finish that game at some point because it was pretty damn sick. It was pretty damn sick if I could just power through the musical shit. And then, like I said, they do a good job of giving you other things outside of just the musical numbers to participate in. Madden 24, I don't know. We'll go C tier for Madden. I'll put it above the Big Con, above No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. I'll put it below Wanted Dead. Wanted Dead's just super fucking unique. Madden 20, I'm glad they brought back the minigames. Everything outside of that is it's just Madden. Thirsty Suitors, I will go. Yeah, I think I would go A tier for Thirsty Suitors. The most unique game I played all year. A dating sim combined with a turn-based RPG combined with a cooking, simulator combined with fucking skateboarding game. Like there's so many different mechanics on offer with Thirsty Suitors, and the fact that they nail pretty much all of them is just astonishing to me. Just absolutely astonishing. And yeah, I think I would put it at the bottom of the A tier, so I think this is where I'll keep Thirsty Suitors. But what a surprise treat. A Game Pass Day 1 title, one I did not expect, one that I did not expect much from at all, and it just totally shocked the shit out of me. So yeah, Thirsty Suitors definitely in the A tier for me. Trepang 2, I will go, yeah, I'll go C tier for Trepang 2. I would put that above Daymare 1994. What am I saying? I wouldn't put Daymare 1994 above Dead Island 2 or above Street Fighter 6. I don't think. I think I might have been a little bit overzealous there in my hype for Daymare 1994. It's a fun game. I think I would put it above Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 is a better game, but Daymare 1994 I think I personally enjoyed more than Street Fighter 6. But Dead Island 2, I think Dead Island 2 is just a little bit more fun. Anyways, talking about Trepang 2, that's going to go in at the top of the C tier for me. It's a Fear clone in every sense of the phrase. All the same abilities. similar in, well, I will say it's much gorier and also much more goddamn difficult, which was annoying as shit, but very much a Fear clone. Cool horror kind of storyline going on there, and yeah, it takes an interesting spin narratively, but it is just a true blue Fear clone across the board. Not the most ambitious first person shooter ever, but a really fun one. Fort Solace. I think I would go. Would I go? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would go B tier for Fort Solace. I'll put it above Stray Gods, below Planet of no. I'll put it above. Oh, actually, let me swap this. Scars Above is gonna go right above Stray Gods. I would put Planet of Lana above Scars Above. I think. And then I would put Fort Solace above Planet of Lana. Fort Solace is a really just super narrative rich adventure game. You know what I mean? I've talked about it as being like Resident Evil without the combat, and that's just truly what the game is. But Troy Baker, from The Last of Us as Joel, Roger Clark, Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2, they're like the two main characters, and then Julia Brown is the main actress, and they just crush this game. Their acting is supreme in this title. The facial, the motion capture, the facial animations, the character models, they look great, and they just sell a really strong narrative throughout the entire game. Not long at all, 3 hours, but it's a real joy to play through. Wildcard Football. I will go right below Dead Island 2, right above Daymare 1994 in the C tier. This is like a Mario sports style game, and it's all card based where you get these different cards, and those are essentially your powers that you can use throughout the game, and it's just a fun arcadey football game. But the cool spin is that you're able to play with like real NFL players through the NFLPA licensing agreement, and yeah. The best football game of the year, no doubt. El Paso Elsewhere. I mean, this for sure, B tier. I think I would go. I'll go above 2K23 and above Tears of the Kingdom. Would I put El Paso Elsewhere above RoboCop Rogue City? I think that RoboCop Rogue City is definitely offering up more to the player, but I think El Paso Elsewhere is so goddamn stylish. Like, it has probably my favorite soundtrack of the year, probably the most underrated story of the year. I mean, the writing is the fact that it's a game with like these textureless PS1 faces, and that it from an objective visual, like if you look at this game, you'd say, yeah, that looks worse than like 90% of modern games. But the story is better than 90% of modern games and more engaging than 90% of modern games. So it's a testament to this game's writing that you're totally hooked from start to finish in this fucked up ass relationship that you're seeing depicted on screen. And it's a Max Payne inspired third person shooter, and it's the gameplay can at times get a little bit repetitive. I think it overstays its welcome a bit. It's about 8 hours long. I think that's maybe 3-4 hours too long. So I'll go RoboCop Rogue City, because I never really felt that way with Rogue City, but one of the best soundtracks, if not the best soundtrack of the year. One of the best performances from a main character this year. But still, I do think I would have a hard time giving it the nod over RoboCop Rogue City. Although El Paso Elsewhere was not buggy at all, and RoboCop Rogue City definitely was. But the ambition on offer with RoboCop Rogue City, the fact that it's like an open world game, and it's crazy ambitious. Star Trek Resurgence. C tier, above The Expanse. That's a good kind of barometer, a good comparison immediately, because Star Trek Resurgence is It's a bunch of ex Telltale employees that went and started up kind of their own Telltale competitor studio, and I would say their game is actually better than the official Telltale game this year. So definitely would put it above The Expanse. Would for sure put it above Layers of Fear. I would put it above Street Fighter 6. I'd put it above Daymare 1994 as well. I don't think I'd put it above Wildcard Football. Wildcard Football is fucking a real treat, and I think that was Saber Interactive that developed that, if I'm not mistaken. So that team is I know they obviously have multiple teams working on multiple games, but wildly ambitious studio over there. But Star Trek Resurgence, like I said, Telltale style game, choosing your own, you choose your own adventure. You're playing as like kind of the crew leader, and you're getting to decide the fate of these different characters, and you're responsible for all these different characters on your ship, and you're doing some politicking, some intergalactic politicking, and then you also play as an engineer who's a little bit more boots on the ground. You got some third person shooting and shit going on. There's much more gameplay on offer here than your typical Telltale adventure, but yeah, it was a joy to play through. Sea of Stars. I once again will put this in the C tier. I will go above Chia, right below Season A Letter to the Future. Sea of Stars, I played about 5 hours or so of this game, so I probably shouldn't have even included it in here, if I'm being totally honest. I couldn't get into the story at all, and that's why I bounced out, but the art style is impeccable. The combat is actually much more fun than I anticipated, having a little bit more active elements to the combat system. And yeah, the puzzle solving I thought was decent enough. The exploration in general was much more fun than I ever would have expected. And yeah, Sea of Stars, I'll throw it in the C tier. Forza Motorsport as well is going to go in the C tier. If I'm being honest, I really don't give a damn where Forza Motorsport ranks in at. It kind of has the same Madden feel to me. It's just, I'll put it above Madden. I'll put it below Wanted Dead, though. I did play a good bit of Forza Motorsport. Probably played like 10, 15 hours of it. But yeah, it didn't. It's one of those like brain dead gameplay loops. So I was like, fine, I'll just kind of sit here and go through these different levels and then have a nice chill experience with Forza Motorsport, but nothing that really knocked my socks off in the same way that Forza Horizon 5 did at all. NBA 2K24, once again, another C tier style game. I'll put this above, I would definitely put this above Atlas Fallen. I'd put this above Under the Waves. Honestly, I would put this above everything. I'll put Season A Letter to the Future above 2K24. 2K24, just the Mamba mode in general was a huge welcome addition. I played through the entirety of that Mamba mode, got all the achievements, or not like, trophy achievements, but the literal achievements. They have like 21 achievements. Went through and did all that. I loved that mode. There definitely could have been improved upon, but yeah, and I also love the new layup system that was featured in NBA 2K24. Very, very much a welcome addition to the game. Viewfinder. Ooh. That is... that's very interesting. Viewfinder. I'm very fresh off this game, obviously, and I'm having a hard time trying to figure out why I shouldn't put it in the A tier. I think it's an A. I think it'd be bottom of the A tier, but I think I'd have to slot this into the A tier, man. That core mechanic of taking the photo and then transporting that photo into the real world and being able to explore and being able to jump onto the platform that was literally just the photo that you took of the game world, and then being able to manipulate that photo into the actual game world and using it to your advantage to reach locations that you previously couldn't reach. That was fucking crazy. And then being able to transport yourself into old school NES levels, into old school Tetris levels, into different little castles, and there was some crazy shit taking place. And from a technical level, the instantaneous world swapping on offer with Viewfinder was wild, man. Just really, really wild. Lego 2K Drive. I haven't talked about any of these next three games. And like I said, I'm going to try my damnedest to make this brief. But Lego 2K Drive, I played through it and finished it. This is insane. This is an insane fucking video game. There's like 4 fully open worlds that you get to drive around in Lego 2K Drive. Wild concept. It's full of, open world destructible environments. It's full of different power-ups and boosts that you get. You're going off and battling aliens at a certain point in the game. You're going and you're making these huge jumps and like taking, what is it? You're taking like drones out of the sky or some shit. At a certain point in the game, you can fly. There's these boosts littered throughout the world, and you're able to fly in your car. You swap between your car to your off-road car to your boat instantaneously, and you don't have to do anything. It just auto swaps for you based on the terrain that you're driving alongside, or I guess riding, whatever the term is for boating. I guess boating would be the term for boating. Good job there. But yeah, man, there's and being able to go in and customize your car however you see fit with the different Lego blocks, and the track design is often excellent. They have worlds that are more like spooky and haunted, and it's just a cozy, fun ass video game. It's a very, very fun driving game. If you're into arcade or racers, I really, really recommend picking up. I really recommend picking up Lego 2K Drive, man. You might think I'm crazy. I'm going to go under El Paso Elsewhere, above Tears of the Kingdom. Once again, objective quality, Tears of the Kingdom is in the S tier, but I'm going to go Lego 2K Drive above Tears of the Kingdom, right below El Paso Elsewhere. That's like a solid B tier game in my opinion. And next up, we have Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. I'm gonna go. I'm going B tier, but I'm gonna put it under Stray Gods, like really close to the C tier. Even though I did finish Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, I played about 30 hours of it, and man, I don't understand why Ubisoft wants to not be Ubisoft. Like, I love Ubisoft games because of the Ubisoftification of their games. Like, I love placing the quest markers on the map and going straight to the quest marker and skipping all of the filler, all of the dumb shit. That's what I love about Ubisoft games. And now, after the success of Elden Ring, they're like, nope. We want to blend our world in so seamlessly, where you're going up and you got to find this guy who's living in a damn tree house, and then there's 3 stories to the tree house, and you just got to go and hunt him down, figure out where he's at. We're not giving you any goddamn clues, which they do kind of give you a clue, but it's still like going, and there's no yellow paint, like the RE4 yellow paint. There's no real indication of where to go, how to get there. Everything, the environment is so blended into itself. And just the exploration, the forced exploration to get to your destination is so goddamn annoying. And I get it that's kind of the new wave that people like. Like I told you earlier, I'm always gonna just be me, give you my honest opinion. I think that shit sucks. I think that shit sucks of being forced into, and that's the thing, is they have a mode called like exploratory, and then they have a mode called guided, and I put my shit on guided, and it's still fucking tedious and monotonous and boring as hell. Just get me to the good shit. What are we doing? Let's get to the good stuff. And yeah. So anyways, that was annoying, but the gameplay, it plays just like Far Cry. I love Far Cry, and the world is of Pandora. It's one of the most beautiful worlds in any game ever. Key, very emphasis, focus, hit on the head world. One of the most beautiful worlds of any game ever. Not one of the most beautiful games of any game ever. There's a clear distinction there. When I say most beautiful games, when I'm talking about Horizon, I'm talking about, character models, I'm talking about world building, I'm talking about more than just atmosphere. The world of Pandora that was created here, top tier. Character models, not at all top tier. Cutscenes, not at all top tier. World of Pandora, top tier. But the world of Far Cry Far Cry 6 is fucking beautiful too. So yeah, listen, I like that gameplay loop. The first person shooter gameplay loop, difficult, definitely difficult, much more difficult than a Far Cry game. Once again, maybe taking inspiration from the wrong directions there, Ubisoft. But I don't know, man. I loved having the flying mount and being able to just kind of look over the vastness of this world, taking on the different helicopters and taking on the different mechs, when the boots on the ground taking on the mechs. The beginning of the game hit really hard with the story, and they kind of do the typical Ubisoft thing or Far Cry thing where the beginning of the story real strong, where you have Giancarlo Esposito in the mix for Far Cry 6. Real heavy emphasis of him and the kid early on in Far Cry 6. And then for the middle, not much at all. And then the end, you get some good stuff. And that's the same shit here. Strong hook narratively early on, nothing at all in the middle, and then a good ending. So it is what it is. I'm not expecting world-class storytelling from Ubisoft at this point, even though it doesn't really make sense to me why they can't tell like super compelling stories. I don't understand what the divide is there. I guess it's just not a huge focus for them. But yeah, regardless, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, it is a beautiful, beautiful world and a fun Far Cry gameplay loop with some tedious, annoying ass, vague ass objectives or locations that you have to go and find, and you're finding the objective in the location. My brain is on E at this point. Let me go ahead and wrap this shit up. Venba, and this has to go in the B tier, man. This was no other game this year got a tear out of me. Venba, boy, Venba. It hit at the damn heartstrings. This, it definitely got me. It definitely got me. It's a game that's all about time and all about being reflective. It's a very minimalistic story across the board, or not story. It's a very minimalistic game. It's not trying to do much, but what it's trying to do, it hits out of the park. And it is absolutely worth playing for the story alone. The main kind of hook mechanically is the cooking that's taking place. I could take or leave that. I didn't think that was anything too incredible, but the story is top tier. It's only like 2 hours long. Highly recommend experiencing that. I don't really want to spoil anything. I'll just say this: it's about a family that moved to Canada from India, and like I said, the main hook or the main story thread is just watching how this family evolves over the course of like 20 years. And I don't want to just skip ahead to I'll put a timestamp in or something, but and I'm not even going to spoil it too drastically because I do want people to experience it for themselves. But there is a moment that you're seeing the mother. She's laying in bed, and time has passed, and like you see kind of the gray on her hair, and she's laying in bed alone, and it doesn't say anything. It doesn't really have to say anything. You understand the implications, and fucking hey, man, it's even just talking about it is really tough. It hits so hard, and those moments hit so hard, and they're so subtle with those moments, but you obviously get what's taking place. And then later on you see the kid, and he's grown up, he's in college, and he's wearing his dad's glasses, and that has like a significant tie because of some story beats that take place earlier in the game. And those moments, dude, are just gut-wrenching, heartfelt, really pulling on those emotional heartstrings. And I mean, listen, I played it. This is the I played Avatar before I played Vimba, but that was the one of the last games that I played, and I played it during the holiday season, and obviously you're just naturally more reflective during those periods, and so it probably hit me a little bit harder there, just thinking about time and thinking about squandered relationships or thinking about. I don't know. Everybody probably is going to think about something different depending on their personal circumstances. But thinking about all these different things that you could have done right to be more connected with people who you're not as connected to anymore, or wishing that you could have mended those fences and fixed those relationships before they went too sour, or before, whatever the case may be. Like there's so it's going to trigger so many different strings that can be pulled on, different thoughts that can be expanded upon internally, and that's exactly I imagine what it intended to do, and it also intended to tell a really personal, heartfelt story. And I just appreciate the shit out of this. I appreciate the vulnerability. I appreciate the fact that this truly felt from the soul. That this felt from the soul, from the heart. Like it didn't feel like a video game that was designed to necessarily appeal to the masses, but I think anybody who plays through this in its entirety, because even though it's not necessarily designed to appeal to the masses, there's not a single person who can't relate to the story in Vimba. There's not a single person who won't have some sort of emotional connection to what takes place there. It's so goddamn heartfelt, and yeah, it definitely got a tear out of me. It's hard not to fucking tear up while just talking about it right here. Fucking excellent. But now let's get back to the X's and O's here. Where does it rank? This emotional, heartfelt game that can pull tears out of me instantaneously. Where does it rank? Is it better than Immortals of Avium, the AAA $300 million game? Fucking A. What a wonderful concept, putting all these games together and ranking them, despite them being so wildly different and totally different genres, totally different budgets, totally different pursuits for what they want, the response they want to elicit from the players. Just, yeah. But that's the fun of this. I love doing this shit. But yeah, I mean, I think Immortals of Avium, sorry to pick on you, but I would definitely put Vimba above Immortals of Avium, just for hitting me the way that it hit me. Now, Bramble the Mountain King is actually kind of interesting, because another smaller game. It's much larger in scope than Vimba. I think it's more ambitious in what it's trying to do, Bramble the Mountain King, and I think that Bramble the Mountain King is just a little bit more impressive to me than Vimba. There's no story. There's probably no story on this entire list that it stacks up to Vimba in terms of like emotional depth. But Bramble hits on some pretty strong themes there as well. And it's mechanically interesting. Yeah, I'd put Vimba below Bramble the Mountain King, but fucking shout out to it. Such a soulful, from the heart experience, and I could not recommend it more. Okay, so let's go through this to make sure we don't need to change anything around. The S tier, Jedi Survivor in the lead as Game of the Year. Resident Evil 4 below that. Starfield below that at number 3. I think that's it, man. I think Jedi Survivor is going to be my game of the year, my 2023 game of the year. All three of those are so goddamn close. RE4 and Jedi Survivor in particular are so close. Starfield's really close too. This is like last year. I felt like I really had a Plague Tale was up there. Trying to think what else. Evil West, Horizon Forbidden West. I think Horizon Forbidden West was definitely like the clear front runner, and yeah, that was the clear front runner. This is a three-headed monster right here. It, depending on the day, I don't know about that. I think that Jedi Survivor I would have ended up giving it to on most days, and I think here's the thing that I really do believe. If you sat me down in front of all three of these games back to back to back, I think I would come in here even more confident. Like if I had isolated windows to play Jedi Survivor for 10 hours or even 5 hours, then move to RE4, then move to Starfield, played all for 5 hours, I think I would be even more confident in locking in Jedi Survivor. I've been removed from that game for quite some time, longer than I have from Starfield and Resident Evil 4. And I think that just is kind of even more of a testament to the quality of Jedi Survivor. With, Resident Evil 4, it released DLC, so that gave me a reason to jump back in. Starfield, it just came out more recently than either Jedi Survivor or RE4, so that's why I played it more recently. And still, regardless of the fact that I'm fresher on both of these other two games, Jedi Survivor still sticks out with all of its mechanical variety, with its huge story moments. That's a crazy thing as well, that my moment of the year is from Jedi Survivor, a game that came out in April, May, March, sometime, at least 7-ish months ago, at the very least, at least I think. So yeah, a huge testament to the quality of that game. And yeah, Jedi Survivor is officially my 2023 game of the year. All right, so I combed over all of the different tiers here, and I think I'm comfortable with my final ranking. I really don't think there's much at all. I don't think there's anything that I really want to move. I'm locked in with this here ranking, and now it is time to read out the final list to you all. Star Wars Jedi Survivor number 1 as my game of the year. Number 2, Resident Evil 4. Number 3, Starfield. Number 4, Hogwarts Legacy. Number 5, Dredge. Number 6, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Number 7, Spider-Man 2. Number 8, Final Fantasy 16. Number 9, Hi-Fi Rush. Number 10, Killer Frequency. Number 11, Dead Space. Number 12, Thirsty Suitors. Number 13, Viewfinder. Number 14, RoboCop Rogue City. Number 15, El Paso Elsewhere. Number 16, Lego 2K Drive. Number 17, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Number 18, WWE 2K23. Number 19, Horizon Burning Shores. Number 20, Mortal Kombat 1. 21, Bramble the Mountain King. 22, Vinba. 23, Immortals of Avium. 24, A Space for the Unbound. 25, Game Deck Definitive Edition. 26, Fort Solis. 27, Planet of Lana. 28, Scars Above. 29, Stray Gods. 30, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. 31, Trepang 2. 32, Dead Island 2. 33, Wild Card Football. 34, Star Trek Resurgence. 35, Daymare 1994 Sandcastle. 36, Street Fighter 6. 37, Layers of Fear. 38, The Expanse. 39, Season A Letter to the Future. 40, NBA 2K24. 41, Sea of Stars. 42, Chia. 43, Under the Waves. 44, Atlas Fallen. 45, Assassin's Creed Mirage. 46, Wanted Dead. 47, Forza Motorsport. 48, Madden 24. 49, No One Lives Forever. 50, The Big Con. 51, Crime Boss Rocky City. 52, Goodbye Volcano High. 53, Atomic Heart. 54, Redfall. 55, WrestleQuest. And 56, the worst game that I played in 2023, AEW Fight Forever. So that's it, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I appreciate y'all for listening to this long ass ramble. I am going to try my best to edit this up to the best of my ability, but yeah, it's a long one. So apologies for 2023, huge year, lots of damn games to talk about. That's my big 50. That's my top, 56, how many ever games we just went over there. And, yeah, man, appreciate y'all stopping by. Thanks for sitting. And if you made it to the end of this video, thanks for enduring my ramble here. But I hope y'all all have an excellent new year. I don't know if I'll be able to edit this in time to get it out before the end of 2023, but either happy new year, or I hope you all have an excellent new year, whichever is more applicable at the time of watching this. Regardless, man, once again, thank you all for a great end of 2023 with the channel. And yeah, I just greatly appreciate all of your support. So subscribe, click the like button, comment, all that good shit massively helps out the old algorithm, gets us out to more eyeballs, and let's strap in for a good 2024. I'm hoping that we can continue this momentum into the new year. So I'm about to take my ass to sleep, and I'll get to work on editing this bad boy in the coming weeks. So appreciate y'all, and I will see you good people in the next video. Goodbye.